Once again, Katie had me on her mind and wanted to talk about me. What I don't get, though, is why not just tell the truth? Why spin the facts of the matter in such a way that makes you look like you're some victim of mine? I mean, why does someone want to be everyone's victim so badly? For backstory, this involves the harassing and threatening phone calls Hammerheart Brewery allegedly received on Katie's behalf on June 19, 2020. I made a rundown video of what happened back in June if you'd like to watch that one first to catch up. I'll leave the link in the description. But the TLDR version is her husband is signed with a label called Bind Rude Recordings. One of the owners of the label is a guy named Austin. On the day Katie's husband's new album was released, a brewery that is also owned by Austin received, according to Katie, 40 voice messages threatening and harassing Katie. Katie made 3 videos about these phone calls and played several of the voice messages. In one of those that she played, the caller says, "Katie Joy needs to die." Katie told everyone in the video that no one was reporting the calls because they weren't made to her and that the place that did receive them was an hour away from her. She then said she was passing the messages on to her lawyer. That no one cared to report them, a bit disturbing. I reached out to the brewery that received the calls and asked them why they weren't reporting them to the police. I sent them one email on June 24th. That was the last time I thought about my email until Katie brought it up on Twitter about a month later. See, on July 25th, I posted a couple tweets, quote unquote, behind the block, as she puts it. I was pointing out vaccine misinformation and that I hope she doesn't allow COVID or vaccine misinformation to remain on her Twitter feed. The tweets are as follows. I will never approve of natural cures for any health issues because they protect and promote Big Pharma. We are also censored on different social media platforms when we speak of natural treatments for diseases. They have a right to have a GoFundMe for their treatment. I wrote, behind the block, as she puts it. I hope you don't leave comments like these unchecked on your feed. Doing so only gives a platform for pseudoscience, something you used to fight against. Though I agree they have a right to a GoFundMe for treatment of any kind, I must insist the public they are targeting also has a right to know what their money will be going towards. Unproven or disproven treatments by not doctors is information that should be transparent. Katie then wrote on her feed, Erin is obsessed. She emailed husband's friend's work to ask if I was okay and to snoop about death threats. She's not well in the head. Imagine emailing a brewery to ask about a woman they don't know. Imagine spending all day subtweeting and commenting behind a block and then running back to a troll group. That's what she does. Yep, I have comments on every tweet I can't see because they create accounts and block me immediately. The silver lining is there are more people not willing to do what they do, but that doesn't give you peace on the day-to-day. I'm sure this has made you tougher, but this behavior, the way they dehumanize you, is like a microcosm for how badly we need internet education, so many things. I've literally commented on maybe a dozen tweets of hers in the past couple months. That's hardly all day. I also emailed the brewery asking why they weren't reporting these calls to the police. Threatening calls like that should be reported. I'd be scared if it were me. If one email asking a company why they dismissed calls for a woman's death makes me obsessed, then what does that make her for dozens of targeted videos, emails, posts, tweets, comments, contacting sponsors, posting addresses, emailing employers, etc. against everyone? Here's my email. Dear Austin, I'm writing to you in regards to the threatening voicemails your brewery received on behalf of Katie Joy Paulson. Katie revealed in a video your business received harassing phone calls on her behalf. Katie shared some of these on Instagram, and one of them in particular sounded especially concerning. The one where it said Katie needed to die. May I ask why it is your company is not reporting these to police? I realize that they are threats made against Katie, but I also find it concerning for your company that they decided for some ridiculous reason to include your business into their fear and hate campaign. I am also reaching out to law enforcement in your area to learn what protocols should be followed in making such a report, and will happily share with you what I learn as well as a contact name and number. I would be worried for my business if some crazy person was calling me leaving death threats against the spouse of an associate of mine. I would especially be worried for my associate and his family. I'm dumbfounded that your company is not taking this more seriously. Thank you very much for your time. Erin, please go away. Your stalking is creepy. Stop calling my husband's friends work. Stop spamming my followers. Your obsession is unhealthy. Your harassment is beyond comprehension. Aaron, okay, that one we already read. How do you know if they didn't call the police? How do you know if they didn't? And then decided to. And she can tell social media, if she wants. What does that matter? I'm getting off this thing. I was going off of information Katie provided. If that information was wrong, then I'll happily correct my tweets. If they decided later on to report to the police, then I will happily say this. In fact, I want to be able to say this. Why would anyone need you to make that call? Did that make you feel good? Well, I didn't feel bad. What I can't understand is why no one else made that call. Why no one else found these calls to be a serious matter and worthy of reporting? Why no one else found Katie to be worthy of making this report for? Why did I have to be the one to inquire? No, you want information so you can have more drama. If this was true, then why didn't I tell social media of my email? Why didn't I post a screenshot of it when I sent it? Why did Katie have to be the one to tell you I emailed anyone if I'm the one who wants the drama? This brings us to almost 2 weeks ago, to August 5th. I woke up to find a tweet from Katie saying that she unblocked me so she could address me on Twitter. So naturally I responded. This woman has stalked and harassed me for months. She contacted my husband's friend's work. Yup, she sure did. Contacted them because she didn't believe people left death threats about me. She's also spammed and commented behind the block. So I'm unblocking her to call her out. She then shares how I tweeted, I've been blocked by Katie Joy for a couple months now on Twitter, but I never knew this hashtag existed. So I responded to her tweet with, I'm here, what would you like to say to me? Someone writes whatever, and then Katie replies, Erin likes to gaslight and troll people so that they lose their cool. She loves to do this to people that don't agree with her about everything. Check out her page, What's the Harm? She lives for this. Now, in my email, I never expressed any doubt in the business having received the threatening phone calls on her behalf. I absolutely have some doubts now, but I never pushed a narrative that she lied about these calls or that the business was lying about these calls. In fact, only recently have I considered the possibility that these calls might be bullshit. The tweets now go on to say, I admit that I call out people who lie and especially call out the lies, and they likely feel gaslit from this since it makes them look bad when they try to bury it. Now I called his employer. We received a message that you contacted a brewery and left them a message or an email. They were not okay with that at all. Yes, an email. I shared it on Twitter after you told the world I sent them an email. I never even talked about doing this before then, so not like I was chasing clout or anything. I was genuinely concerned why they wouldn't report death threats against you. Let me give some legal advice that your team of lawyers is obviously lacking. If you truly feel harassed or stalked by any of these peeps, stop constantly talking to them and about them on social media. You are instigating the whole situation every time. You're welcome. You need help. You're welcome. That's it. That's what you want to tell me? What do you have against people who may or may not need help? Why are you stigmatizing mental illness in this way? But I digress, though. If pointing out your errors, lies, and misinformation equates needing help, well, then the world is fucked. Why do you gaslight everyone? Admit what you do and move on. Leave me alone. I'm not stigmatizing anything. I'm telling you to get help because calling my husband's employer is not okay. Stop spamming and harassing my stumps. Don't like me, don't watch. Karen, are you trying to control social media and who can post what where? You realize that with every tweet, post, and video you make at myself or anyone else, or anyone else you don't like talking, all you're doing is instigating, right? You say this like you have any experience with me. Is there an episode I'm not aware of where I caused you to lose your cool? Keep gaslighting, Erin. I know you. You know me. You run What's the Harm. Thanks for the advertising there. Are you trying to send crazy people at a bunch of pro-vax advocates who do this for free in their spare time? What did the other admin ever do to you? Why do you want to hurt vaccine advocacy like this? Oh my God, are you anti-vax now? Thanks for doxing me in the page there. Oh, that part was from July 29th. And then, funny how she tweets about me and points me out to her thousands of followers, yet somehow I'm the fucking stalker. I think she needs another social media timeout to think about her behavior. Katie Joy, some crazy person called Hammerheart 40 times to threaten me. I'm making 3 videos about this. Oh, and buy my husband's new album. Internet/me. Why isn't this reported to police? I mean, they said they want her dead. Why no report it? Katie Joy, stop harassing me. You told the brewery you run What's the Harm. That's why we know. You mean my signature? But still, so what? Why are you blasting this to all of your thousands of followers? Was this relevant? Nope. But you want to try and hurt what's the harm since I'm the admin to the page. You care more about vindictiveness than you do vaccinated children. Nice, Karen. I also want to point out that my email did not say that to the brewery when I sent it to the brewery. So she's lying right there. On this last one, she says, I told the brewery that I ran What's the Harm. I hadn't looked at the email since the week prior or so I just assumed she was correct and that my signature was turned on. However, as you can see in the email, I didn't say a word about what's the harm, and my signature is not turned on. So she's lying here. Now, for granted, I don't try and hide my involvement with the Facebook page, and I even publicly advertise this on my Facebook profile. On my Twitter account, I even have the website linked. That being said, she's informing her over 7,000 followers that some chick she doesn't like and that she claims is harassing her, stalking her, spamming her subs, etc., runs a Facebook page that she claims, and I quote, she runs an anti-vax page, it's not anti-vax, on Facebook where she calls out people that aren't vaccinating and other pseudoscience. She somehow decided I'm the worst and trolls me for sport. Effectively, she's telling any anti-vaccine followers she has, and any followers of hers who really doesn't give a shit either way, exactly where to find me. And since I'm trolling her for sport, allegedly, well, now people know where to find me. The thing is, I don't care if people know where to find me. I care if they harass the page or try to prevent the advocacy work we do online through the page. I'd rather she just posted a link to my Facebook profile. What's sick is that she is using the page to satisfy her desire to be vindictive towards me. She put her own butt hurt from some stupid social media drama ahead of the health and safety of every child and many adults from vaccination. She runs an anti-vax page on Facebook where she calls out people that aren't vaccinating and other pseudoscience. I used to know her. I used to cover these topics due to my son's health. I stopped covering it. She somehow decided I'm the worst, and she and other trolls troll me for sport. When did I say you were the worst or that I was looking for a new sport? I still help run that page, and I covered an anti-vax rally in Albany this week as well as worked with national news. I don't like people who use others by lying to them and exploiting them, that's all. One of her followers writes to me, oh wait, you're an anti-vaxxer? Bye. Katie then replies, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I reply, no, I am not an anti-vaxxer. I help admin a pro-vaccine page that exposes anti-vaccine misinformation and harassing behavior as well as debunks other pseudoscience. I don't know why she keeps calling it an anti-vax page. She's never been one to care much about accuracy. Her supporter writes, my bad. I thought that you supported that. Granted, everyone can have their opinions, but that's one thing I just don't get. I agree completely. Why would you literally contact a brewery to ask about threats? Honestly, you don't think that's weird? I just told you why. Look up. Goodbye, Aaron. You need help. Do not contact anyone in my private life again. I'm telling you, contacting my husband's employer and friends is so beyond crossing the line. Spamming and harassing my subscribers is beyond crossing the line. Participating in a hate group which targets and harasses me and then goes from creator to expose me is not okay. Here again, she accuses me of contacting her husband's employer. In the video linked in the description that I mentioned earlier, towards the end, she clearly states to her live chat that this brewery is not her husband's employer. See, her husband's band is signed with the record label Bind Rune Recordings. One of the label's owners' names is Austin. Austin also owns Hammerheart Brewery. On June 19th, Todd, Katie's husband, had a new album release for his band Canning Dicks or some shit, whatever they're called. Coincidentally, on that same date, this brewery, that is also owned by the record label's owner, received all these threatening and harassing phone calls towards Katie. Once again, I did not contact her husband's employer or his friend. I contacted a business that, according to Katie, according to what she said in her videos, was not bothering to report having received 40 harassing and threatening phone calls on behalf of Katie from some seemingly hateful and obsessed crazy person. And I was contacting them to ask them why they didn't share even my concern, let alone the concern that Katie must have felt. She says it was Austin's brewery that received the calls and that Austin is also one of the label owners. Upon hearing this, I simply Googled Austin's name and brewery. The business name came right up. Katie made no effort to hide them, and I'm glad that she didn't, Because if they truly receive such calls as Katie claims, they deserve to have their reluctance to act on the calls known. Goodbye, Aaron. You need help. Do not contact anyone in my private life again. I didn't to begin with. You even said you didn't know these people. They never met you. Had to Google to find out who Katie Joy was on the voicemail. Also, you publicized these people by making videos about them and what happened. Not private by your doing. Her supporter. How is calling someone's husband's employer pointing out lies and misinformation? Where I come from, that is called stalking. You have some serious mental issues if you think calling a stranger's employers and neighbors is okay. I want to point out, never once was neighbors mentioned. I never contacted or spoke to a neighbor. I know nothing about her neighbors. Again, you seem to have difficulty with reading comprehension if that is what you got from reading my email. Also, what employer did I contact? Why does Katie keep saying employer and now you are saying this? This wasn't an employer. Katie said this much in her own video. Why would I want their attention, Aaron? Maybe you have another friend of my husband's to call and harass. Perhaps you have another employer to harass. No, I'm good. You taught me that keeping it civil and caring about you living or dying only gets used against me. Next time some poor business receives death threats toward you and doesn't report them, I'm going to sit back with popcorn and laugh. I just want to point a few things out before I finish. I'm scrolling back to the beginning of these screenshots to show you something. See, on July 25th, Katie said I emailed her husband's friend's work. Again, on July 25th, she said I emailed a brewery. July 26th, she now says I was calling her husband's friend's work. On August 5th, she said I contacted the husband's friend's work because I didn't believe people called and left death threats. I never once suggested no one called leaving these death threats. Then again on August 5th, she says that they, Katie and her husband, received a message stating I contacted a brewery and left a message or email. Then in another August 5th tweet, she says I called her husband's employer. Then in another August 5th tweet, she claims I told the brewery that I run What's the Harm, but I never mentioned the page or what I did or didn't run. Then in another same day tweet, she said I contacted a brewery to ask about threats. Then followed that up telling me not to contact anyone in her private life again. But I never contacted anyone in her private life. She said they didn't know her, and she put them on blast. I sent one email kindly and respectfully asking them why they weren't reporting a crime. Then, in another same-day tweet, she says I contacted her husband's employer again, then accuses me of spamming her subs. I don't even know what that means. And then accuses me of participating in a hate group that harasses her and tries to expose her. Though it's true, that group members often do expose Katie and her bullshit. I'm sorry, but maybe if Katie stopped being so full of shit, refusing to take responsibility and corrects the things when she's wrong, and stopped victimizing those she reports on, then there wouldn't be anything to expose. It's also not a hate group. I don't hate Katie. I may dislike her, but I don't want to dislike her. I'm not enjoying this. This isn't anything personal. I'm not personally invested in this. In another same-day tweet, this time from a follower of Katie's, the follower accuses me of calling her husband's employer. See, this is what I mean. I emailed the business that received these harassing and threatening phone calls. That's it. And so far, she's turned it into me calling a brewery, her friend's business, her husband's work, and accusing her of lying about death threats. And now her followers are parroting her lies. All I did was ask a business why they weren't reporting such threats to the authorities. Instead of asking me why I wrote and sent that email, Katie should be asking everyone else why I was the one that had to send that fucking email. Why didn't her husband push to have these calls reported? Her family, her subs, her lawyer, who she claims that she gave the recordings and messages to. Why was no one else in her life caring enough to ask the business why the fuck they weren't actively trying to protect an associate's wife and family? Why, of all people, was I the only one who cared enough to ask why Katie was not getting the consideration she deserved? Because no matter how many minors she outs for having an abortion, how many stars or creators she mocks or shames for their mental illness, or how many capable mothers she shames for doing the responsible thing and giving their adopted child with autism to a family that is capable instead of subjecting the child to possible neglect, abuse, or worse, death, or how many young single mothers she wants to try and trip up with probation in hopes of causing them to be separated from their children while in jail, or how many reality stars and creators she tries to cancel because there is evidence of something stupid they once said or did as a teenager. I don't hate Katie, and I never want to see anything bad to happen to her. I guess I'm just some kind of bitch like that. I try not to say anything with certainty when it comes to Katie. I can't help but to ask questions, though, like, for someone who says that they love their job as a vlogger on YouTube and make several videos a day mostly talking about themselves, why is it that she is so quick to constantly accuse so many other people of stalking her, harassing her, doxing her, threatening her, defaming her, stealing content, and targeting her? If you don't want to be discussed, then quit making yourself the subject of everyone else's conversation. If she doesn't want people to say negative things about her, then why is she always so negative with so many people? Like, take, for example, the Saunders-Kennedy fiasco. When Katie was invited onto Augie RFC's live stream, she should have just jumped at the chance when she was invited. Instead, she insulted him, insulted his followers, and acted like a victim for having even been invited. She should have gone on the stream, and she should have just said that she fucked up, that she was sorry, she'd correct her error, and then thank everyone for helping her realize this mistake and for the opportunity to make things right on their show. She passed up a great opportunity to gain subs, show some humility, and connect and relate to people. For someone whose income depends on them being likable, she really isn't that likable. And like when that fake Little Red name showed up in her live chat and used that horrible word at Katie's son, we all knew it wasn't Little Red. But you see, Katie wanted it to be Little Red in that chat. Or rather, she wanted the world to think it was Little Red in that chat. She even smiled on camera when she saw the comment appear. Why so happy to demonize people? Even though she makes videos about, why so happy to out them for any and all mistakes that come to light? Naturally, though, when you even question her in the slightest, she threatens to sue everyone. Though the hypocrisy is alarming, what I find disturbing is the fact that she wants to cause so much misery to so many people just by talking about them and taking them to task for every sin she can find in their past. I mean, why does she want to burn everyone's world down around them? Okay, now I just want to wrap this up by saying one thing. When I sent that email, in fact, when I first saw her videos regarding these phone calls, I did not disbelieve her. I mean, for her to be lying, that's a huge lie to make. And she would have had to fake these calls to have these messages to play in her videos. And this business would have had to been somehow roped in on it too. That's an awful lot. So I believed her that this business really did receive these calls. I had no reason to think otherwise. However, seeing how she came at me about my email, seeing how she accuses me of disbelieving her, of trying to verify these phone calls, of trying to find out information about her or these phone calls, that tells me that she has a guilty conscience, and she's trying to somehow push her blame, her guilt onto me. When all I did was ask the business, why are you not reporting these? These sound like a serious thing. These sound like a big deal. Why are you not caring enough about your associate and his wife to just report them to police? And that's it. I mean, that's not going to take long to do. Then it's the police, it's the officer's job to take care of it, not yours. Why do you want this on your conscience? That's what I was doing. That's all I did. I sent one email, nothing more. Where she runs off with all of this and then tries to change this into me calling an employer or me trying to call this or that, when then none of that happened. I didn't call anyone. This tells me she's full of shit, and this is why I no longer believe her. That's it. She is the reason why I am calling bullshit on these phone calls.